Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. So this time I'm actually just going to start the show by saying that I have got a lot of questions. They're all in a Word file, and if I haven't got to yours yet, I probably will get to it in the future. So yeah, we're just kind of going one today, getting the sort of bigger topics out, and then eventually I'll do sort of for all the shorter questions, I'll just do one video that covers all of them because I think that's the best way to deal with the shorter ones. So today's question comes from Ruben van der Broek, or something like that. I think it's a Dutch name, but I can't be sure. Anyway, his question is, what do you think makes raids fun? Well, I think that it's actually multifaceted, and it's a very interesting thing for me, especially because, well, of course I'm doing it at university. While it does sound a little bit sort of silly, it's computer games development, I believe. It's pretty much a pure programming course, to the point where the programming we do is harder than the software engineering people. So it's it's a good degree, but one of the aspects of that is very interesting is game design. Now, it's not the sort of thing our degree focuses on, but it's something that I personally think is extremely important, obviously, because you can code as much as you want and be useful, completely crap at making games. And I actually think that the raid design in World of Warcraft gives a lot of great lessons into good game design and what makes things fun. So, let's get into the question. Now, number one, I'm going to say social experience. And this really just applies to those of you who are playing with guilds or with friends or that kind of thing. What really keeps you in a raid is the social experience, the banter and ventrilo or mumble or whatever, and just the fact that you're doing stuff with other people. It's all fine, I suppose, just queuing for an LFR. See, to me, queuing for an LFR is the exact same as doing a 5-man dungeon or a random scenario. It's really a single-player event. It's not a group thing, and I think that in a proper raid with people and stuff like that, it's a nice social experience, and that just keeps everything more interesting. People are not scripted like a game is, and that just means that you can have a more interesting dynamic time. Funny shit can happen that a game can't do, but only people can. And it's stuff like that that makes your raiding experience more memorable, more fun, and, well, I guess it's just kind of it's like one of the core things of raiding that's really important is the social aspect. So there's that, and then there's also the fact that you're overcoming a challenge. And that's very, very important in games. One of the big things is conflict, challenge, and the sense of accomplishment that comes with that. And what I really like about the way Blizzard designs their bosses is that their bosses have got these very bespoke mechanics that require you to at least strategize a little bit beforehand. What that means is that you, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold still. You see your sort of pre-fight preparation really pay off, and then you see your actual in-fight skill pay off. So an example of that would be, say, Nurashen. Now, you could, first of all, you have to think before the fight and set up what players are going to be purified and all that. But then there's actually executing the fight and doing enough damage to kill it. And it's when all these different sort of facets of the difficulty come together into you actually defeating the boss. There's a great sense of accomplishment there, and I think it's really well designed the way they have that. And especially since every single boss is different, pretty much. At least within a tier, every boss is different. That means you're constantly having new things thrown at you. It's very varied, the challenge is varied, and also the difficulty curve does get harder and harder. Now, I know that in Throne of Thunder, the difficulty curve was really stupid to the point where some of the later bosses were easier, at the appropriate gear level, were easier than some of the earlier bosses. But in, at least so far, from our experience, in the Siege of Orgrimmar, the difficulty curve has been pretty good, and you feel like you're kind of climbing up a mountain, and you're about to see the I suppose the reward at the end. The difference is, though, of course, climbing up a mountain, the climb bit's not necessarily fun, whereas the climb in raiding is absolutely great fun. So that's very good. And for me, another part of raiding that what makes it fun is the old mantra of, I want to be the very best like no one ever was. Pokemon. Well, you know what? They definitely had it right. There's a great sort of thing. You want to progress and you want to do well. It's really gratifying to look in WoW progress and see your guilds doing well, or to look at EP and bot and see that you did a really good DPS parse or something like that. Now, this is probably less a thing for healers and tanks, because often for healers and tanks, it's more the case of, if you're a tank, you do your job, and it's kind of hard to do your job better, if you know what I mean. And then for healers, okay, you could do your job amazingly, which means that you can 2-heal instead of 3, in a 10-man for an example. But unless the DPS are kind of fucking up and standing in the fire, it's kind of hard to be, to get ranked parses or something as a healer. Unless, of course, your guild is taking too little healers, or at least less than the recommended amount, because the healers are just that damn good. And actually, that's something that's kind of happened to us before. Our healers are quite insanely talented, which is great. But I think for DPS, especially for DPS, there's something about having a DPS meter down there, and you constantly... you get like direct feedback. When you play better, your number is better. When you get more gear, your number is better. You're ranked against all the other people in the raid. You see when you're in the top 2 or 3, it feels bloody great. That is fun. Victory is one of the... I think victory is one of the purest forms of enjoyment in a way. And raiding's really good for feeling victory. You can feel really happy about your own play. But then there's also the kind of collective group experience of winning together, which is something that's very special and very important. An example would be, now, for our guild, I actually missed out on our first Lich King kill because I was away on holidays, which was fucking shit. But our Syndragosa kill, now that boss took us like 2 and a bit weeks or something ridiculous. There was like one mechanic that was screwing over a few people because their computers weren't really good enough. Syndragosa had this big problem, by the way, in case you don't know, where it would just destroy people's computers, which was weird. But after like 2 weeks of constantly wiping and wiping, we finally killed that boss. Everyone was elated, it was brilliant, it was special, it's something you remember, and that's just one of the great things about raiding. How that ties into I want to be the very best, I suppose it's more of a group I want to be the very best, group achievement, group accomplishment, and that kind of thing. Now also, I'm going to say it's about experiencing the latest and greatest. One thing with the way Blizzard designs things is that new content is very much stacked in the end of the game, which is the way it should be in an MMO, so the players who have got through the leveling experience have got plenty to do and keep them interested. That's absolutely the best way of doing it. And experiencing the latest and greatest at the intended difficulty level, and I'll probably get onto this in a minute, I think is just one of the fun bits about raiding. You get to see the new shit first, and you get to see it in the intended difficulty. Now, what do I mean by the intended difficulty? Well, when I say intended difficulty, I pretty much mean... as long as it's a flex or above, I'm going to call that the intended difficulty. At least for group play. Because, you know, flex, okay, yes, it is objectively easier, but that said, it's meant for people who aren't putting in as much time and effort into the game, which is 100% okay. Not everyone has the time, and that's understandable. But what it means is that at the appropriate level of gear, skill, whatever, the content is reasonably challenging. And, experiencing this content, when it's pretty challenging, it's the new thing, you feel like you're on the apex, you're on the peak, you're on the kind of bleeding edge of things, it's new, it's cool, it's special. That's one of the nice things about it. Now also from another perspective is that you're seeing all the new areas first. You're hearing the new raid music, you're seeing the new raid bosses, you're getting to see the new lore firsthand instead of reading about it in MMO Champion or something like that. Of course you probably could read the data mine shit, but it's more fun to experience that stuff first. Unless, of course, you're like me and you're a YouTuber and you need to know all this shit beforehand. So that's one thing. Now, if we're going to compare it to LFR, LFR is there to see the content. Blizzard has said this many times. The thing is, though, when you're seeing this new content at a level, like at a, I suppose, difficulty level, that's probably a little bit easier than it should be, it kind of takes away from how special it is. But I think more of a problem with that is the fact that the excitement of this new experience and these new bosses and stuff is taken away by the fact that a lot of the problems are with people. And that's one of the nice things about organized raiding. The problems are not people-based. The problems are the group needs to get better, but you have the tools and the communication to get better. In LFR, though, you know, you have, let's just call him Douchebag Carl and steal an old instance joke. You have Douchebag Carl who keeps on attacking Nazgûl in defensive stance, or keeps on pulling all the trash, or something like that. And that just takes away from this new experience. I think it's a bit of a problem at the minute. There was a period, by the way, when I could only raid LFR because of my time frame. That hasn't happened since 5.2. But I'm gonna tell you, like, the times where I enjoyed LFR, the only time where I've enjoyed LFR was when it was a new wing opening up, and it was the first week that it opened up. Because what I'd do is I'd get up, and I'd play the new LFR about an hour after the servers came live, and that meant that it was basically full of people who knew their shit, and everyone was happy, willing to talk to each other and work together. And that was really nice. And LFR, that's proof that LFR can be really fun. But the problem is that especially as you go on in the week, you just kind of get more herpy-dirt people who, well, by messing up and being bad, they just take away from other people's experience, and they diminish the fact that this new content is the latest and greatest. They make it crappy, and that's really unfortunate. It's a problem Blizzard will have to deal with at some point, though, I'm pretty sure of that. Still, LFR, it's interesting. Honestly, all I want is for it to get better so that the people who enjoy LFR can continue to enjoy it, and enjoy it more than they currently do, because this is a game where everyone should be able to have fun. Okay, there's rewards that, okay, you might need to put in a lot of effort to get them, and if you can't put in that effort, you don't get them. That's fair, that's a reward structure, but everyone should be able to have fun regardless of the amount of time they play. So, yeah, that point may have expanded into a few minutes more than I intended. Now, the next thing is gear progression. Gear progression is fun in MMOs. You get more gear, your numbers get bigger, and of course, because your numbers get bigger, you can kill bosses with bigger numbers to get gear with even more numbers, which is great. It's a part of the constant crack, and as a dopamine, whatever. The way they've programmed your brain to be like, I need new gear, that's fun, right? You see your character progress, it's an RPG, so you get that, not only in terms of stats, but in terms of physical appearance. I would argue that, especially for hunters in tier 16, well, as soon as I get a new piece of gear, I just couldn't be quicker to find the transmog vendor and get it back to my season 1 gear, because, oh god, it's so bad, our tier. But still, you do have nice gear progression, which is very important. Another good thing about the way they've been doing things recently, especially in the Siege of Orgrimmar, is they've made more interesting pieces, especially trinkets. The trinkets are damn cool. For example, there's one for agility class. I don't know what it's like for everyone else. I think it's the same for everyone, but it reduces all your main cooldowns by 35%. That's a really fun gameplay altering sort of thing. The tier bonus for us is that one of our shots makes one of our main cooldowns 2 seconds slower. That's fun. It affects gameplay. So definitely one of the fun things about raiding is getting access to this cool new gear that's fun. And then I think, just to round it off, general game design. They have really done a pretty good job with raiding in just tying together all the elements that make a good game. You have solid rewards, you have a challenge to overcome, it's a social challenge, it's group experience, it's shared by a lot of people, which means that everyone's more invested in it. And you spend time to get rewards. And one of the nice things is, if you spend, even at the time when we killed Malkrok, and it took us an hour and a half, it still felt great to kill that boss. Everyone was happy, cheering and vent, it was great. Well, mumble for us. So, yeah, I suppose that sort of semi-coherent 12-minute and 22 second ramble was probably an okay summary of why I enjoy raiding. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have much to say. If you want to hear a question of yours said in this show, please leave it in the comments. A few guidelines and questions. If it's something that I can either answer with yes, no, maybe, or a one-sentence thing, what will happen is it'll probably be delayed a week or two and put into a kind of compilation Q&A thing, where I just run down a big list of questions to get them all done. And for some questions, that's the only way to do them right and give them justice. The questions that take priority are ones like this, where I can spend a long time talking about something. The initial question was short. It was, why do you like raiding? But when you think about it, you can expand that question to so much and break it down and talk about, sort of analyze the different aspects of it, which is what I enjoy to do on a Q&A show like this. So anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.